It's time for another Dice Tower review with Zee Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Senji. In Senji, each player wants to become the new shogun, and you're going to be doing that by gathering honor points. You're going to be attacking, you're going to be doing some diplomatic dealings, you're going to be doing a couple of different things, but all ultimately trying to get yourself the most honor points and win the game. I'm going to give you a brief overview of how the game works. I'm not going to give you every rule detailed or anything like that. And then we'll come on back over here and I'll tell you what I think of the game as a whole. So here we go. This is what the board might look like set up at the beginning of the game. I'm not going to go into every little detail of setting up. Just suffice to say each player will begin with 3 of the areas on the map that they'll mark with one of these castle pawns. These places they'll begin on are color-coded, by the way, so we know where they'll be. Each player also gets 3 military tokens here that they'll distribute among their 3 areas however they choose. And then each player will also get 1 samurai figure that will also begin wherever they choose. The samurai cards are over here. The other ones, the ones that they picked, that each player picked, they begin with that card. Each player also gets several cards that make up their hand of cards. I'll talk about these in just a little bit. But these are basically family members and military support and some trading cards that have a ship symbol there. Okay, so there's 3 kinds of cards in that. And then each player will also begin the game with 4 of these Hanafuda cards that might look like that. They'll have a color, they'll have a number, possibly a symbol. And so every player is going to get 4 of these cards. And then you are pretty much ready to begin. The players will also get their scoring markers will be placed on their score track here, and they will be moved up according to the victory points of the samurai that they began with. And so, shifting this down just a little bit, let's say the purple player begins with this samurai in play. That samurai has a 6 in the top corner there. That means that the purple player will begin with 6 of these honor points. And every other player will do the same for them for their scoring marker. Alright? So here's what a game turn might look like. The first thing is welcoming of the Emperor, in which we give the big sand timer to the player that is currently winning. They are going to, by the way, decide turn resolution in the 4th and the 5th phases. Second thing here is diplomacy, where you get to make deals with player, trade cards, give them military support, give them your family members as a way to make sure they know you're not going to attack them, things like that. You have 4 minutes to do that. After that, the spring phase, where you program what you are going to do on your turn. You can add more troops, you can gather more Hanafuda cards, which I do score later on, make sets and score, or you can march, which is a way to reinforce your own front or attack somebody else. During the 4th phase, the player that was given the big sand timer, the one that's currently winning, gets to decide the order in which every territory triggers, and so they'll just point at something. They can do something like, okay, this player, you go. They'll flip their token. Oh, it's a gathering card, so they'll draw 2 cards. And so they get to choose the way things happen. And then the last phase here is where you'll get to basically make sets of cards and trade them in for victory points as well. And that is represented on these, which every player gets. You can basically make different sets of animals, sets of colors, sets of differing numbers, things like that. And these directly translate into points as well, because you, in this game, mainly get points from this and from combat, which I'm going to show you now. So briefly, here's how combat works. Basically, let's say the purple player is attacking the red player. They are going to move as many troops as they want in there. If any player has a samurai, you are going to take a die and set it aside with their symbol showing, in this case, the red player, so that symbol's locked. We take the rest of the dice and we roll them, and then we assign the symbols to the players that they match. In this case, the red player did not roll any more symbols. The purple player rolled these, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4. To the red player's 2. After that, the rest of the dice are set aside with the symbols they actually rolled. And the players each play a card face down. And if you have, you play your own card, which is a bluff card. It means you're not asking for help from these. But if you play somebody else's card you got earlier in the game, you could then use these symbols to aid your side. And so, you know, this is 2 more. Let's say you have the 2 in yellow, which is this player's symbol. Then you could add that to your side. If the purple player did that, then it's a landslide victory. Once that's done, the winner is going to score some points. If you are the aggressor and you win, you score twice as many armies as died. If you're the defender and you win, you score the number of armies that died. And the loser loses all their armies, and the winner loses as many. So in this case, purple attacked 1, red loses 1 army, purple loses 1 to match it. That is 2 armies that died. Purple scores 4 victory points. As I said before, you are going to continue playing until some player crosses 60 points, hits it or crosses it, and then every player will finish out the round. At that point, whichever player is ahead is going to win the game of Senji, and that's how you play. There's a few things I really like about this game. I like the look of the game. I like the simplicity of the system ultimately, which is, you know, kind of makes this big game into something that's easily taught, easily understood. I definitely like the diplomatic phase in the game. I think that's really cool. The fact that you can get up from the table and walk away and make a deal with someone and nobody else at the table knows what's going on. I like the sort of the betrayal that can come from that I could take somebody's family card and then give it to somebody else, and then when that original player attacks that new partner of mine, they'll pull out that card they never knew they had, and there's that betrayal that came from me, right? So I enjoy that. I like the idea of the special powers that come from the samurai. All of those things I think are cool. The things I don't like about the game is I really enjoy the combat system, the idea of the combat system, the originality of it, the simplicity of it. I enjoy all of that. But the combat system in this game is probably one of the swingiest and luckiest that any game in this style has, really. Because that die roll, 1 die roll, and it's all 6 families, you could just get slaughtered, and there's not a thing you can do about it, really. If the dice come up and they're not yours, or you don't have the card to play for somebody who made a deal with you earlier, that's it. And they're so devastating also. If you go in there and you lose all your troops. Everybody. And that's not typically that many, but you could lose 4 at a swing, you know what I mean? And that's a big deal, because you can only have 12. That's a whole third of possibly everything you have on the board gone. So it's a little too swingy, ultimately. You have to know that. This is a game that I've played and enjoyed. You know, all my plays of it, I've thought it's a neat, interesting, if a little slow endeavor. And it, by the way, plays best with 6, not even close with fewer. It's a 6-player game. With 5 or with fewer, you have to take the cards of the characters that are not in play, say like the purple cards, whoever, put them aside, then the players use the other cards they have in their hand to bid on them during the negotiation phase. The diplomacy phase, it's clunky, and it doesn't really work as well as I wish it would. So 6 players. That's not great, the fact that it plays best at 6 and that's it. But again, ultimately, while I think the game is pretty neat, it's not a game that comes out very often. It's a game that doesn't, in my opinion, have a lot of replayability. I think once you've played this one a few times, you kind of have seen everything it's got to offer you. Yeah, the samurai, that might be different, but having those 3 actions and those 3 actions only, gather troops, gather cards, march, is both the great thing about this game because it's simple to teach and I can get it out easily and taught to new players, and it's also the problem because once you've played a few times, you know that the game's going to play out in pretty much the same way. There's no moment here where a new dramatic endeavor, or some dramatic twist of fate is going to come about. Now, that might happen from the die rolling, but I've yet to see anybody feel really good about that. When the dice, even when they go your way, you're like, well, I got really lucky. A neat game, but not one that I would say, especially now that there's a lot of games in a more confrontational style that have come out lately, and they're very strong games. I'm thinking of like the Kemet and Blood Rages of the world. Not something you necessarily need to go back and hunt down at this point. Though I do like the theme a lot. I like the look of it a lot. This is, at this point in time, and for a player like me, where this is not my typical style of game, it's a pass because it is too repetitive, because I do find it to be a little bit too easy for the players to turtle and still do well and not have as much interaction as you would want, or as I would want. So there you have it. That is Senji.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.